This document itself is called self-assessment report, right? Self-assessment, just like your Arogya Setu app, right? It is also self-assessment, that it will ask some questions to you to help you whether you are infected with the virus or you are safe, you are at a very low risk. The same with the self-assessment report is also has to be evaluated properly, right? In the Arogya Setu app, it asks some questions. So if you don't respond correctly, right, whatever is your situation, then it will give you a wrong decision, right? So it asks you that, do you have a cough and do you have loss of sense, right? Though you had, but you said no, right? Then it goes to the next question, then it goes to the next question, then everything you are saying okay, then finally it says that, right, you are at low risk. The self-assessment report is also same thing, right? It is you have filled up and you are giving the marks. So if you don't give the correct marks, right, then what will happen? You will score 950 plus on your own. But when the experts have really evaluated you, right, then I gave an example that people have scored less than 600. That means they were not even through for 3 years provisional accreditation also, right? So let us see that what are those things, like why the particular institution program has given 950 plus marks and then why they have been reduced to less than 600, right? That means an incorrect assessment done by the institute program coordinator, but the experts have taken a different look and different evidences were not available, then automatically the marks were reduced, right? So let us start with the criteria 1, vision, mission and program educational objectives. I have seen your timetable that all these things have been already covered in the while preparing this SAR in different talks by other experts, right? So I'll emphasize on only those things which are crucial, which are very, very important. So under criteria 1, it carries 50 marks. My experience of evaluating more than 50 programs in last around almost 8 to 10 years is that in this criteria 1, right, usually, right, a reasonably good institute will carry around 35 marks, right? You will score around 30 to 35 marks. So if you have maintained proper documents and proper justification for your vision and mission statements and involvement of various stakeholders and which you could show with the help of proof also, documentary evidence. That means a proper documentation is maintained for stating the vision and mission statements of the department of the institute. If that is available and you are able to justify when the experts are asking questions, then you may score more than 35. But I have seen very few institutions scoring 40 plus out of 50. The reason is very simple, that whatever flow of defining the vision and mission statements of the department institute, they are not able to justify it. They are not able to show the documentary evidences for the various meetings that they have conducted to finalize this vision and mission statements of the department as well as the institute. So when you talk about, this is a SAR because we talk about now a department and a particular program. So consistency of the department vision and mission statements with the institute vision and mission statements. So when you define your vision mission statements for your department, various programs, you should also keep in mind what are the vision and mission statements of the institute. That means your department vision and mission statements have to be written in such a way, have to be defined in such a way that they add up to the institute vision and mission statements to achieve. That is very, very important. So what will be seen, that is written here, exhibits context to be observed, assessed by the evaluator or the experts. So vision and mission statements, correctness from the definition perspective, very important, right? I have seen few institutions, their vision statement is having some mistakes, right? There are some words are missing, words are written wrongly, right? That shows the image of the institute, image of the department, when the vision statement and mission statements are having certain errors, right? Very, very important. And sometimes even if it is written, it is not making sense out of it. Very few institutions, right? Many of them have written very well, but very few institutions, there are certain errors, right? Another thing is, and it is not displayed properly on the website, right? One is it is not clearly visible from the website easily. Another thing is there is a mismatch, what you are written in the SAR, what is available on the website. That means either your website is not updated, right, with the correct vision and mission statements, right? So that is also very, very important. Why it is very important is only the self-assessment report soft copy goes to the evaluators before they actually come to your institute. And only place that where they can actually verify these things is your institute website. So I request all the people who are especially head of the departments who are participating in this program, or maybe some higher officials, you please see that your institute website is up to date, and whatever claims that you have made in the self-assessment report, as far as possible, they should be made public on the institute website. That is a good practice. That is a transparent practice, which is appreciated by all your stakeholders, as well as institutions like National Board of Accreditation, NAC, or even NIRF also, right? National Institute Ranking Framework also, because your information, whatever you are saying, is available in the public domain. People can see, people can verify it, and then go ahead. So this is what I was telling you, consistency between institute and department vision and mission statements, very important, right? So whatever you write for your department vision mission, that should be aligned with the institute vision and mission statement. That is very important, that you need to justify. And state the program educational objectives, right? So you need to list 3 to 5 program educational objectives, right? And then here also again, availability and correctness of PUO statements, right? So that means you should ensure that your PUOs are properly defined, right? Properly written without any mistakes, and it is meaningful and it is justifiable, right? So that you need to show. So there is a process for this PUOs also. You might have find out some flow chart. So that flow chart, every stage, wherever documentation is required, that you should maintain a separate file, and you need to explain to the evaluators how you have arrived at these PUO statements and how you are able to justify them. One more thing, right? 1.3 is indicate where and how the vision, mission, and PUOs are published and disseminated among the various stakeholders, right? One is publishing of these statements, right? Vision statements, mission statements, and then program educational objectives and their dissemination among various stakeholders. Very, very important. I'll tell you that these are very small things, but small things also will speak many things to the expert. So we went to various institutions, and some of the institutions, right, they have displayed it very nicely. But some people like they have displayed these vision and mission statements in the classroom also, at least department vision mission and institute vision mission, but they are not displayed at an appropriate location, appropriate height rather, right? So it is displayed almost near to the roof, and the font size is also very small. So then we asked the students, yeah, just 1 second, 1 second, 1 second. Sorry, right? There was a call from director's office. Anyway, yeah, we can continue, right? So it was displayed these vision statement or mission statement or PUO statements near the roof, right? And it is a very small font size. So we asked the students during interaction, what are those things which are displayed on the wall? So first thing is they told, sir, we can't read it because the font size is very small, right? And then we asked when was it displayed? So in the departmental presentation, HOD has told that, sir, our stakeholders like students, faculty, alumni, everybody knows about our vision and mission statements. They have been made aware through a syllabus book, through this, through that, right? Many things they have spoken, right? But when we interacted with the students, right, your truths are coming out. So first thing is it was not displayed properly, the vision, mission statement and PUO statements in the classroom, right? And then it is not visible because the font size is very small. And the third thing is, though you have told that you have disseminated, you have made aware all these people, but the student told that, sir, it was displayed only 4 or 5 days before. in the classroom. So please don't do it for the accreditation purpose. Again and again, I'll tell you, this outcome-based education, if you follow the principles, right? Principles as per the criteria wise 1 to 10, sincerely, honestly, every day, right? Just like you're brushing your teeth, it will reap a lot of benefits for you and for your students, for your department, for your institute. Okay. Don't work for accreditation. Rather, you follow the principles and automatically you will be quality and you will achieve the accreditation. Right. So that means everything, even a small board that is displayed, why it is displayed, that should be known to you. What for you are displaying, that should be known to you. Right. And who should read this, that should be known to you. Right. So that is the purpose of all these things. Not that just hanging on the wall, right? Neither you have read, neither your students have read, nobody is going to read it. And you have also put it at a place where nobody can read it. So its purpose is defeated. Its purpose is defeated. And experts, because they're also teachers like you, they carry a very, very bad impression, very, very bad impression, right? You are saying before the experts during the HOD presentation and director or principal's presentation, and what is visible in the campus, they are not matching. They are not matching, right? What you claim, what is seen is not matching. So it creates a bad impression on the expert's mind. Then automatically, right, the impression goes bad, and then they will be asking more details, right? Because they're teachers, they know, right? Very, very important. And then process of dissemination among various stakeholders, like how you are educating, making aware your students, what is this outcome-based education, what is this accreditation, what are the benefits of accreditation to the student, right? What are the benefits of accreditation to a faculty, right? That faculty means all departmental faculty. It's not that only HOD is aware and some senior faculty is aware, but rest of the faculty, like assistant professors who have joined recently, they are not aware of what is this accreditation, what is this outcome-based education. So everybody, it's a teamwork, right? Everybody should know. Even your alumni should know, right? Why you are going for this accreditation? What are the benefits? Maybe that alumni, when he was in the campus, you have not started. After he has left the campus, you have started this outcome-based education. So you need to apprise them also, right? So that when the experts will interact with alumni, they will be able to tell that this is a new initiative our institute, our department has taken, right? And we are convinced about it, and we are also trying to help the department, right? In what way we can contribute so that the outcome-based various principles can be more effectively implemented, so that the students in the campus will be better and better knowledgeable and skilled and talented, so that they will be having better placement and better higher studies. Right? That's what he's telling. C is extent of awareness of vision, mission, and PEO statements among the various stakeholders. 9 marks are there. 9 marks are there, right? And again, I'll tell you, every mark is very important. Every mark is important, right? So I told you that if you are a tier 2 institution, right, out of 1,000, you have to score at least 600 plus, 600 plus to less than 750 to go for at least 3 years provisional accreditation. So any score less than 600, any score less than 600, right, it will not give you any accreditation for any duration. So it's all your efforts are not yielded any visible result, like 3 years provisional accreditation or 6 years for full accreditation, full-time accreditation, right? So you need to work for it. Every mark is important, right? And you need to work on this. Okay. So these are all what the experts will be looking for, that I have already told you, right? Right, how you are taking care of all these, defining the statements, and then how you have displayed, how you have disseminated among various stakeholders, and that all those things should be visible in the campus. At the same time, when the experts interact with the stakeholders, they are able to speak. My experience is doing more than 50 programs evaluation. Many a times when we interact with the students in the class in the absence of you, they are not knowing, first of all, what is accreditation. They are not knowing what is this outcome-based education. They are not knowing like what is the benefit to the students when your program gets accredited. So I suggest is before you start your semester, maybe you can spend around 10-15 minutes, right, in the first or first 1 or 2 lectures, so that you demonstrate through a PPT what are the benefits, why you are going for all these things, what your department is following, what each faculty is following, right? And then maybe you can interact with the students also, so the students should be able to discuss and then tell you also, right? Tell you also. Dr. Gladius, there is some Dr. G. Suresh is trying to enter into the room. Please admit him, because this message is coming to me again and again. Yeah.
Okay, sir. I will take it.
You please take care, because I think some students are trying, some participants are trying to join. Right?
Yes,
That
yes.
message is coming to me again and again.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Right. So now 1.4 is state the process for defining the vision and mission of the department and PEOs of the program. Right. This is what I was telling, that there is a flow chart that you have made for this vision and mission statement. That means the process, right? First, you as a department, right? You had a brainstorming on the vision and mission statements of the institute. Then you try to frame your vision and mission statements for your department, right, as a faculty. Then you had a discussion among the committee, right, which has been constituted for defining vision and mission statements of the department, right. Then you had a discussion with the students, also student groups, right, student committee groups, and then some suggestions had come from them also. Then you invited your alumni also, right. Then you invited some outside experts and industry experts also, right? So all the documentary evidence that you need to show. When did you had a meeting? What was the agenda of the meeting? What were the minutes? What were the suggestions? What were the comments? What were the recommendations of each of these groups? And how did you take care? If you have not taken care, why you have not taken care? So that a flow chart along with the documentation, underline the word along with the documentation very well. So I have seen that there is a flow chart. I have seen that statements are available, right? But the documentation is missing. Right, that what was the agenda of various meetings to define these vision, mission, and PEO statements, and what are the comments, what are the suggestions, what are the recommendations, how they have been taken care and evolved with this vision, mission, and PEO statements. Very, very important. You need to justify it. You need to justify it. Then 1.5 is establish consistency of PEOs with the vision of mission of the department. That means whatever program educational objectives that you have defined, that should have a correlation, or a consistency with the mission statements of your department. That means you have a vision statement for the department, then you also have a various mission statement, maybe a few mission statements also to achieve that particular vision of the department, right? So your program educational objectives and mission statements of your department, there should be a matrix you have to prepare with a justification, right? Suppose you have 3 PEOs, right? So you have, let us say, 5 mission statements, M1 to M5. So you need to have a PEO is addressing which mission statements, and you need to indicate the correlation. That is, 1 is weakly correlated, 2 is medium correlated, 3 is highly correlated, right? So you need to see that these PEOs, right, are basically defined in such a way that they are really contributing to your mission statements of the departments, right? Okay, and you need to have that matrix. That's what I'm telling. Justification for each of the elements mapped in the matrix. So this is what is criteria number 1, vision, mission, and program educational objectives, right? Sub criteria 1 to 1.5, adding up to 50 marks, right? And I told you that every institution which is reasonably good, right, they score around 30 to 35. But if you want to score 35 to 45, then you need to have proper documentation, proper justification for each of these 1.1 to 1.5. Then definitely I have seen very few institutions which have scored around 40 to 45 in between. They have scored 40 to 43 like that. So this criteria is the one which you can easily score, and you should focus on this. And it's very important also because your vision is clear, your mission is clear, your program educational objectives are clear. So definitely, right, you are working in achieving all these things. So your program is going to be well accepted among the student community, among the parents, so that there is a lot of demand for your program. Any questions on criteria number 1? So that we'll go to criteria number 2. Any questions? Yeah, if no questions are there, then we'll go to criteria number 2. Very important criteria. This, as a teacher, it is your responsibility. Program curriculum and teaching learning processes, right? On this also you had expert talks already, but I'll only touch upon the highlighted portions, right? Rest of the things are self-explanatory and which has been covered in the previous talks also. So program curriculum is very, very important, right? State the process for designing the program curriculum, right? That means you have a BTech mechanical engineering program, BTech civil engineering program, BTech computer science and engineering program. So every program has a curriculum, right? Curriculum for 4 years, right? First year to final year. So what is the process that you have adopted? What are the various standard curriculum that you have seen? For example, IEEE has some model curriculum. AICT has got some model curriculum, right? Maybe some foreign universities also, they have some curriculum. So by seeing various standard curriculum, right, which is given by various institutions of reputation, and various regulatory bodies. So you have taken care of all of them in mind before you framed your program curriculum. Very important. So you have a documentary evidence, right? You have a documentary evidence. This is the IEEE model curriculum. This is the AICTE model curriculum for BTech CSC program, right? This is the total number of credits. These are the program electives. These are the program core subjects. These are the humanities subjects, right? What is the percentage? And everything is well thought about, right? Well thought about. And you have come out with a structure for your program of BTech CSC and BTech Mechanical Engineering. And I have highlighted here, very important thing is involvement of industry experts. Very, very important, because I told you that for any program where the students join, there are three outcomes. One is their placement or higher studies and research. And then third one is the entrepreneurship, right? So industry involvement is very, very important, right, in defining your program curriculum. So at least 2 industry experts should be available when you finalize your program curriculum, so that your curriculum is matching to the industry requirements, right? By having the industry experts on your panel of board of studies is going to be very, very helpful, especially for tier 1 institutions. Tier 2 institutions do not have much control on this program curriculum, but definitely you can invite industry experts, right? You can show your program curriculum so that they can suggest you like what are the gaps between the industry and the program that you have defined, curriculum that you have defined, so that you can ask them how to fill up that gap which is created in the program curriculum defined by the university, affiliating university, so that you can also demonstrate this, sir. University curriculum is this. Then we had invited 2 industry experts or 3 industry experts, or maybe some experts from Institute of National Importance like IITs or NITs or IIITs nearby, right? Then they have given that these are the things that are missing in your curriculum and how they should be taken care. So that shows a proactive behavior that you are filling the gap that has been created by the program curriculum defined by the university. So what type of efforts you are putting to fill those gaps, because your curriculum is already defined, your timetable is defined, but the industry person and the higher educational institution like IIT, IIIT expert has suggested that these are the things which are missing. So you need to have some way that, whether in the form of some expert talks or a series of expert talks, and how you are going to impart those things to your students, right? And then you should have a documentary evidence for the program curriculum that you have defined, especially for the tier 1 institutions, right? For tier 2 institutions, whatever university has given, that you have got it. But apart from that, you had your own meetings with the industry experts and higher educational institute experts, and then you have found out some gaps that need to be important to the students, and that you have taken care with the help of these comments, right? So that shows a positive behavior, that shows a proactive behavior with respect to the experts, right? That you are progressing very well. Then 2.1 for structure of the curriculum and all that I am not touching, because that's everybody, all of you know that balanced structure and appropriate for a degree program, that you are already aware of it, like what should be a percentage of electives, what is the percentage of core subjects, what is the percentage of some compulsory subjects without any credits, like AICTE has introduced some ethics and all those things. So that you need to address all those things. And then in any BTech program, AICTE has suggested that around 160 credits you can have, plus or minus 10%. This way or that way you can proceed further, right? State the process used to identify the extent of compliance of curriculum for attaining the program outcomes and program specific outcomes, right? So for all these things, you need to have a documentary evidence. Very, very important, right? Very, very important. That means whatever course outcomes that you have defined, right, that should be measurable, right? That should be measurable, and accordingly, your question paper has to be set in, and your evaluation has to be in such a way that all the course outcomes are properly attained, and then they have been mapped properly with the POs and PSOs, and they are leading to the attainment of program outcomes and program specific outcomes, so that you are able to justify your course outcome. And this has to be demonstrated through program course files, right? Every teacher will maintain a course file for the course that he or she is teaching, right? And course outcome attainment evaluation, and program outcome evaluation, and PSO evaluation, that will be done at the program level. That means a committee is there in the department, right? Collects all these course outcome attainments from each of the teachers. And then you have created some Excel sheet or maybe some online software you have created. So every teacher will enter the attainments for each of the subject that they're teaching. And then finally, the software is automated in such a way that POs and PSOs at the end of each batch that is passing out is automatically calculated. And it describes the process followed to improve the quality of teaching learning, right? So adherence to academic calendar, pedagogical initiatives, methodologies to support weak students and encourage bright students. So what are the things, right? Here it is, I have highlighted here in the expert's point of view, guidelines to identify weak and bright student, post-identification, actions taken, impact observed, right? So what is the method that you are adopting to find out a student is weak or a student is very intelligent, very sharp, right, with respect to the studies and other areas, right? One of the thing is they use the percentage of students, like how he is performing or she is performing in the various class tests and various quizzes that you conduct. When you ask questions, how they are responding it, right, whether they are able to understand or not. So by using various means, you can identify whether your students, all of the students in the class or majority of the students are following what you are teaching. And then when you give a question paper, when you conduct a quiz type of exam, how many of them are able to perform well? If some of them are not able to perform well up to the mark, what is the reason? Interact with the students, like you have some criteria number, like student support system, like there is a mentoring, right? That means basically it is that how you are focusing on the weak students, how you are focusing on the bright students. So how you are reducing this weak student category and making them towards average and above average towards bright students. That is the whole purpose of this exercise, right? So that all of your students, because any class you take it, you can't find all the students are bright students, right? You have bright students, few, you have many students above average category, there are a few students average, and then there are a few students weak category also. So your focus would be on weak and average students, so that these students also will move to above average and bright students. Very important. That's the whole purpose of this exercise. Then efforts to keep students engaged, right? Also to be verified during interaction with the student, right? That's why you say that bright students are there. So how are you going to engage them, right? They're very sharp, they're more eager, they're hungry, right? To learn many things, to do something good, right? So how are you going to engage them? But at the same time, you have some weak students also, right? If you give the same assignment to the weak student, they'll be more burdened, they'll be more tensed up, they'll be more pressurized, right? So they will not be able to perform also what they're supposed to perform. So how are you going to balance these two groups, right? Weak and bright students by various activities. Then quality of laboratory experience with respect to conducting, recording observations, analysis, etc. Here I tell you again, right, laboratory experience, a few things I'll tell you which I have observed during the various visits. There is something called a lab file or lab record, right? In north side, they call it as a lab file, right? They call it a file, but in southern side, we call it as a lab record. The lab record, right, that index page is there. So teacher is not checking these experiments. Like, see, he has checked all the 10 experiments on the single day, right? But student may be carrying out only 1 or 2 experiments in each of the class, but 10 experiments are checked, are verified together, right? And that is one, right? That is one thing. Other thing is when you open that lab record or lab file, every page is having a red mark tick, every page, right? Even the blank pages are also having a red mark tick. So what do you mean by that, right? A blank page, nothing is written by the student, but still there is a red mark, tick mark is there. So no comments are there anywhere in the lab record. No comments, right? The entire lab record, 10 experiments I have seen, whatever the students have conducted, there are no comments are written there for the improvement of the student. And every page, even including blank pages, are having a red tick mark. And when you see the index page, 10 experiments are checked on the same day. But the marks are reduced, right? Experiment number 1, every experiment is 10 marks. First one is given 7 marks, second one is given 8 marks, third one is given 5 marks. But no comments are there. No comments are there in the record. So when we ask the teacher, they say that, sir, they have some rough notebook, we convey there. Then we ask, where is the rough notebook? Sir, students have not brought today. So all these stories will add up to the expert's conviction that actually it is not conveyed, it is not done properly. So why don't you write in the lab record itself, right? Lab record, that will be with the student also. You write in the notebook also, the rough notebook also, you write in the final record also, right? So that it is, the purpose is the student is conveyed, student has improved in the next experiment when it is evaluated, so that he is not, or she is not doing the same mistakes again and again. That is the whole purpose of this lab record exercise. So please see that it is done well. right? And when you're conducting the lab exercises, many times I have seen that the whatever question that you have seen for CSE and IT branches, I have seen that the problem is given, even the program is discussed, right? Program is displayed on the screen, it is discussed. So it doesn't serve any purpose. You are killing the creativity of the students. You are killing the innovation of the students, right? So rather they should be given a problem statement, right? Whatever experiment they need to do, let them find out, right? Let them find out how to solve this problem. Or maybe you discuss the problem, right? What is this problem? And then you have interaction with the student, brainstorming with the student, let the student come out with a solution, and then let them write their own program. Let them write their own program, right? Let them develop the logic, let them write the program, let them execute it, right? See, whatever question you have given, program also you have given, right? Only they are typing by looking at this program. That is not going to serve any purpose. That's not going to serve any purpose, right? So that means students are not applying their brain at all. So that type of things should not be there, because experts will be visiting your labs when the lab is going on. That means whenever the visit is there, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that is a working days, right? Though maybe Saturday, Sunday is a holiday, but at least for students that Friday and Saturday should be working. Sunday may be off because Sunday is only exit meeting will be there. Students are not required. But Friday and Saturday, whenever visit is there, even if it is Saturday is a holiday for your institute, you ensure that, even the NBA also will tell you that you should ensure that the classes are scheduled on Saturday also, and experts will be visiting your labs, experts will be visiting your classroom, they'll be interacting with the students. So that's rather students should speak more about this, the way that you are conducting, how it is being benefiting to the students, right? So that student should be able to speak. So you have to prepare your students to interact with experts, right? Many a times there is another observation I'll tell you, that when we are interacting in a class, out of 60 students are sitting in the class, hardly 1 or 2 students are speaking, right? Experts have spent 15-20 minutes in the class. Experts are trying to motivate them to speak, but they are not speaking. They are not speaking, right? They are not interacting with the expert. That carries a very bad impression. Very bad impression. I have seen few institutions, there are very few institutions where every student is opening the mouth, every student is eager to interact with experts, right? Every student is trying to convey certain things. That gives a very good impression to the experts. So it is your responsibility to prepare your students so that they're bold enough, they're able to communicate in English, right, as far as possible, right? Very, very important, very, very important, because that will help them in their placement interviews, or maybe for any other interviews that they're going for. So it is the responsibility of each one of us as a faculty to prepare our students so that they're able to convey their thoughts, they're able to convey whatever they want to convey in a language which the other person can understand, right? Okay, very, very important. Then you have very, very important the semester question papers, assessments, right? Assessments in terms of your internal tests, in terms of your assignments, right? In terms of your practical experiments. So whatever question paper that you create for each of the subjects that you are teaching, that question papers should be prepared in such a way that you are able to evaluate the COs that you have defined, right? COs that you have defined. That means every question that you set in the question paper, every question that you give in the assignment, right? Every question that you are giving for the lab experiments, they need to be looked into the CO attainment, right? CO attainment. And then later on, how a particular PO or PSO is attained through this particular subject. Very, very important. So that's where the examination reforms of AICT document comes into play, right? So you can have a look at it, that gives some sample question papers and all. I am not saying that that is a perfect this thing. Guidelines have been given, right? You can do much better than that. And you should do it also. You should do it all. But that gives a starting at least, right? Where to start, how to set a question paper, right? So that really that students are tested for above higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy. Like remembering and understanding should be as less as possible in the question paper, maybe 20 to 25%, not more than that, out of a 100 marks question paper. So you should focus on apply, analyze, evaluate, right? Wherever it is possible, at least apply and analyze, design, implement. This type of questions should be more in a number with a more weightage, so that students are really tested what they are learning in the classroom, whether they are able to apply, whether they are able to design, whether they are able to implement. All those aspects are critically seen, so that students are more sound with respect to the knowledge as well as the skills that they have attained. And the feedback, very important. Various feedback that you collect, right? Every semester, Once the semester is over, right, you are collecting feedback for every course that you have taught to the student, right? When the student is passing out from the program, you are collecting the feedback. When the student is going for industry internship, you are collecting the feedback, right? When you are collecting the feedback regarding the facilities available, like infrastructure of the labs, infrastructure in the classrooms, like library facilities, you are collecting various feedbacks, right? We have seen that feedback is collected in most of the institutions, but where it is lacking is its analysis and corrective actions. Its analysis and corrective actions. So the purpose of the feedback is defeated if you have not analyzed it, right? If you have analyzed it, if you have not taken any corrective actions, still the purpose of the feedback is defeated. So you collect the feedback, you analyze the feedback, you come up with the recommendations, corrective actions, and then see that impact of it in the next year or next semester. So that is the whole purpose of this feedback mechanism. Very, very important. And you need to have the documentation for this, right? How are you collecting the feedback? How do you justify your collection of the feedback, whether it is filled by the students only, not by somebody else, right? All those mechanisms that you need to think over it. And then first you should be convinced, then only you will be able to convince your experts who are visiting your campus. That's what I was telling. Quality of end semester examination, internal semester question papers, assignments, evaluation, right? In many institutions, we have seen that assignments means all assignment questions are having questions like describe this, explain this, what is this, define this. That is not an assignment. That is not the purpose of assignment, right? Assignment should have some questions which will test the capability of the students with a higher level Bloom's taxonomy, like apply, design, implement, right? A case study is given, they are supposed to analyze it, they are supposed to come up with recommendations, right? That means they need to have a proper understanding of the whole subject, and then they need to come up with those things, right? That is an assignment, right? A problem solving exercise is given, right? Not these questions, describe, explain, discuss, write short notes. These are not the assignments, right? That should be totally avoided, and you should not give such type of things, right? Okay. And then one of the important thing is quality of student projects. Quality of student projects. And I tell you that when the visit happens, your third year students will be doing a lot of projects like minor projects or capstone projects, right? Major projects, maybe in the final year students. So you ensure that your students are ready with their projects prototype for a demo, right? So you prepare your students that within 3 minutes time, they will not be, suppose there are 15 groups of students are standing. So experts will not be having so much of time to see every project that you display there. So you train up your students to say whatever they wanted to say to this prototype projects in 3 minutes time, not more than. So they should be focused. How this teamwork is also being displayed among the students. That is also very, 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 very important. And then you should encourage your students to do these projects in the final semester or final year, particularly in the industry, right? That means you need to have a strong industry institute interaction cell, where your students are going for industry internship for project works, or maybe in the second year and third year also for industry internship. That is also going to help you for placements purpose also in the final year, right? And then quality of completed projects and working prototypes. So that means the projects and the prototypes that you are developing should be current and latest, right? And it is solving some industry problems or society problem or community problems, right? That need to be taken care. That means the teacher role comes in over here, right? So that you are able to give them some problem statements which are wherever your college is located, that you are trying to address some of the local concerns or community concerns, or maybe some local industries are there, right? There may be small projects, but yes, it is worth doing it, and that is the whole purpose of your college existing over there. And one important thing I want to highlight is evidence of papers published. Yes, students' publications. I am talking about student publications here. So I have seen many institutions encouraging their students publishing papers in journals, international journals, right? I don't have any objection. You can always go for good quality international journals if the student could do such level of work. But what I have observed is that they are not quality journals, right? They're not quality journals. Neither they are in Scopus, neither they are in UGC CARE, right? Forget about SCI and SCIE and ESCI, or maybe transactions. So what I suggest is, right, don't go for those type of journal papers like you have submitted the paper today morning, And then by evening today, you got a confirmation that your work is accepted, your paper is accepted, and pay this 8,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees and get it published. So don't encourage your students. Neither you do it, neither you encourage your student for this type of publications. Rather, a student, right, a BTech student, a diploma student can go for an international conference like conducted by this IEEE, Springer, elsewhere, ACM, right? Similarly, for other branches, there may be some reputed conferences will be happening at national level or international level. Encourage your students to submit papers over there. If it is accepted, encourage the students, right, to go and present the paper. If it is accepted, oral presentation, even if it is poster also, poster presentation, encourage the students to go there and this thing, so that they get a benefit out of it, like how to present before a learned research group, whatever work they have done it, and then try to face questions from the listeners, right? So that gives a lot of confidence. So many a times I have seen in few colleges that even the students are hesitant to go. The teacher is also accompanying along with the students, so that morally of the students is boosted because the teacher is there along with them. So it's a very good practice, right? You can devise such type of practices, and instead of going for a what do you call a raddi, right? We call raddi means wastage, right? Waste papers, right? Just publishing in journals by paying money. It is better that you go for good conference papers where the student can develop many things like how to present before people and how to face the audience, right, with the questions and all those things. And then many a times I have also seen that the paper quality write-up is very poor, right? There are a lot of spelling mistakes are there. Even the paragraphs are not formatted properly, not formatted properly, right? Even there is no plagiarism check, right? What is the originality of this particular paper? That is also not checked. So please take care of all those things, right? All those things, because if you look at program outcomes, there is one PO talks about this ethics also, right? Ethics also. What are the ethical practices? These are the ethical practices. Like whenever a student is submitting a paper, whenever a faculty is submitting a paper, it is compulsory that you have to check it with Turnitin, Urkundu, or any other free anti-plagiarism software. It's compulsory, right? It's compulsory at the department level. You are enforced, and everything is compulsory, right? Compulsory to go for this originality check, and that is the policy of the department. And even for the policy also, you can make it that what are the journals where you can submit papers, what are the conferences where you can submit papers, which are the ones which you should not submit it at all. So all these policy documents, if you have created, if you are following it and you are able to demonstrate to the experts, that is a quality improvement, continuous quality improvement, right? You are striving, you have defined certain principles, you define certain quality norms, and you are following it for the students also, for the faculty also. That gives a continuous quality improvement year after year, semester after semester, so that the three outcomes that I spoke in terms of placements, in terms of higher studies, in terms of students being encouraged to go for startup activities will definitely will improve it, right? Improve it. Right. Then initiative related to industry interaction. I already told you that industry supported laboratories, very important, right? So I'll tell you one story here. One institute last year before the lockdown I visited, that is one of the very popular institute in southern region, right? I don't want to take the name of the institute, very popular institute, very renowned institute. They had two labs supported by industry. One was Internet of Things laboratory, other one was high performance computing laboratory, because I saw only CSA department, being I am a CSA faculty. And we were in the ground floor and these labs were in the second floor, right? So they took us through lift, and then we went there. And then it was surprising to see that HPC lab was locked, which they wanted to show. Nah, it was locked. Then IoT lab we went, it was open, right? But when we went there, they are claiming that as a center of excellence, IoT center of excellence, right? Industry supported. But when we visited that, they're having only very basic kits, right? Very basic kits of Arduino and those are these things, right? And then, okay, that is fine. At least you have started a center of excellence, right? There's a beginning stage. We still accepted it. But the problem was no student was available to explain, right? One or two teachers were available. They also are very new to that and they are not able to explain. So the purpose of the lab existing is defeated because students are not there. Teacher is also not able to explain. And whatever you have claimed, right, the lab exists, but its utility is not seen. Utility is not seen by the faculty as well as students. So by the time HPC lab was opened, it was locked. right? Then we saw that a beautiful infrastructure was available inside, but there are no students. There are no students. So you have a lab, industry supported lab, but its utilization is not visible. Its utilization is not visible by the faculty, by the students. Very, very important. Whatever facility that you have created, you must ensure that it is being used by the faculty and the students properly. And then how it is benefiting for achieving various COs, POs, and PSOs. That is also very, very important. Very, very important, right? So I told you already, industry involvement in program design and curriculum, at least 2 industry experts like TCS, Infosys, or any other industry in your locality, right? That you should ensure that they're actively participating and they are improving, they are contributing for the improvement of the program design as well as curriculum, right? And some institutions I have seen that the industry experts are teaching a subject which they have introduced, like Infosys I have seen, TCS I have seen. There are some other industries also, right? They have introduced a course which is required, and they themselves are sometimes teaching the students. Sometimes they are training the faculty. In turn, faculty should train the students on that particular subject. It can be a full delivery, it can be a partial delivery of the entire course. That is up to the between you and the industry, right? And then whatever industry institute interaction that you're doing, is there any impact analysis, like feedback is there, impact analysis is there, when an industry course is introduced, how the students are taking it, whether they're really enjoying it, whether they're really getting benefit out of it. All those documentary evidences also you need to see. That's what I've written in types of industries, types of labs, objectives, utilization, very important, utilization of these labs that you've created with the help of industry, and then documentary evidences, like how these labs are being utilized, what type of prototypes you have developed, what type of papers that you have published, right? All those things are very, 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 very important, right? The initiatives related to industry internship and summer training, right? So many institutions, they do not have this industry internship. They have internship that students have to find out on their own. And some students which are from a very good family, like parents are working and all those things, they are able to find out because of their influence. But there are many students who do not come from that background. Maybe parents are not educated properly, right? Maybe parents are illiterate, so they don't know which industry, right, to go and all those things. So I say that your training and placement cell, career guidance cells should be very, very strong, and they should have a strong industry linkage, and then they should place the students for industry internship and summer training in the industry. It's not the student finding out and going is a separate story, but the institute putting efforts with the help of this training and placement cell is having a different impact altogether. And then take the feedback from the industry internship from the students, and then analyze it, and then see what is the impact with respect to CO, PO, PSO attainment. And then if any changes are required, you should you should do it. You should do it. So this is what is criteria number 2 on program curriculum and teaching learning processes, and it carries 100 marks. 100 marks, right? Out of 1,000 marks, 10% weightage is given for this criteria number 2 in tier 1 institution. Tier 2 may be having some variation, right? Maybe more weightage will be there or less weightage will be there, but the criteria is same. Criteria is same. Only the number of marks may vary between tier 1 and tier 2. Any questions so far on criteria number 1 and 2?
Participants, any questions?
Yeah. Yeah, I like interaction, right? Because unfortunately, because of this lockdown, right, Gladius has not invited me to Velammal Institute. I would love to come there. Very nice place.
Yes, sir. Yes,
very
sir.
nice place. Because of the lockdown, everything is online. So online difficulty is it is like a talking to the wall. So talking
Yes,
to
sir.
the wall.
Yes,
We
sir.
don't know how many are listening.
Listening, yeah,
yeah. So unless you speak, right, I don't understand whether you are listening to me or not.
Please, participants, post your queries in chat box also.
Yeah. If any questions are there,
One of Professor. Yes, sir.
Any questions are there in the
Good
chat?
morning, sir.
Yes, sir. 2 questions are there. Dr. Sangar Ramalingam asked.
Yeah, please read out, madam.
Yeah, yes, sir. Mission vision cannot be changed for a minimal period 5 to 6 years. Hope I am right.
Yeah, see, for a department vision and institute vision is always a long-term goal, right? Long-term goal. So changing it in a short span means you are not defined your vision properly in the beginning itself, right? So you are absolutely right. At least for 5 years, right? 5 years is very short time, right? At least for 5 to 10 years, right? I say, right? You should not change the vision of the institute and vision of the department. So that means that is the reason that how carefully you have defined your vision, keeping in mind the futuristic things that are going to come up. So that defines, like you have taken correct feedback from the industry experts, correct feedback from the higher education institutions like IITs, triple IITs, those who have a foreign exposure also, right? So that is the purpose of it. That's what you are supposed to show in your documentation, in your meetings, minutes, and all that. You have involved the renowned people from the industry, from academia, to define your vision and mission statement subsequently. Absolutely correct. You are right. 5 years is a very short time. I say that at least 10 years. Yeah. Next question, ma'am.
That person also asking the same. Actually, we have mission update in 2 to 3 years. Like that, we also asked Dr. Sangar Ramalingam. Shall we have mission update in 2 to 3 years?
Vision statement is a broad for a long-term goal. But to achieve that mission, maybe 1 or 2 mission statements, sometimes you can add it, right? You can add it. There is no harm in that. But changing all the mission statements doesn't make sense. That means you are not defined your mission statement properly to achieve that particular vision that you have defined. Very important, right? That is the reason I'm telling you again and again, your process of defining the vision and mission statements has to be robust, right? So that you need not have to change it every 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. That is not a good practice. That is not a good practice. That means you are not taken care in the first place. That is the reason you are changing it now. So that is not a good practice. That is not a good practice. Yeah. Yes. Any other things? Right. If no questions are there, let us go to criteria number 3. Right. Course outcomes and program outcomes. Very, 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 very important. It carries 175 marks. Right. 17.5 marks. 17.5% of marks out of 1,000 marks. Right. 1,000 marks. Very important. Course outcomes and program outcomes. And many, right, out of more than 50 plus institutions that I have evaluated, I should say that at least 40 institutions lose marks in this. Either they have not defined their course outcomes properly, keeping in mind the program outcomes given by the National Board of Accreditation. If they are defined properly, course outcomes, they are not mapped properly with the program outcomes and program specific outcomes with that 1, 2, 3 numbering, like low correlation, medium correlation, and highly correlated, right? And sometimes if it is even mapped reasonably good, but the attainments, right, when it goes to the question papers like direct assessment and indirect assessment, they are not properly done. So everything is very important. Defining your course outcomes, keeping in mind the program outcomes and program specific outcomes is the first step properly. That means all your course outcomes should be measurable and attainable, right? Very important. So once you do that job and mapping is done correctly with the POs and PSOs, next question comes evaluation, attainments, course attainment. That means your direct assessment in terms of your question papers, internal question papers, your quiz, your assignments, or maybe some minor projects you are giving, right? Minor projects you are giving. Everything should be given for a particular course, keeping in mind the course outcomes that you have defined and the program outcome that it has to be mapped or achieved, and as well as PSOs, right? That means your assessment should be made keeping in mind the course outcomes, program outcomes, and program specific outcomes. Very important, right? Your course outcome, let us say, right, it says that apply these techniques, these algorithms, and so on, so applications. But when you set a question paper, your question paper is saying that define this, define that, what is this, describe this, explain this, right? Write a short note on this. So where is this CO1 is satisfied? Where you have written that apply this algorithm in so and so scenario, so and so application. No question in your question paper talks about this, right? But in the mapping, CO1 is being mapped, right, with some program outcome and all those things. It is not justifiable, right? Though you have mapped, but your assessment is not talking about it, right? So everything has to be going in hand. Your definitions of COs, POs, and PSOs and mapping, along with your assessment, direct assessment and indirect assessment, that they are able to achieve these course outcomes. Hence, you will achieve program outcomes and then program specific outcomes. Very, very important. And then every course that you are teaching, that should have a course file. Course file, what will be there, right? Starting from the syllabus of that particular subject, right? And then your lesson plans, right, for the whole semester, right? And then what are the question papers that you have set in for the internal examinations, right? What are the assignments, if you have given any, that what are the assignment question paper? and then sample answer scripts of the students which have been evaluated by you. Right? Not all answer scripts are not all assignments. Maybe 2-3 best, 2-3 average, and 2-3 below average. Right? Right. So that category maybe for every test you can keep 6 papers. Right? Answer scripts, sample answer scripts, 2 very good or above very good, maybe 2 average and 2 below average. Similarly for assignments also. And then you need to justify why you categorize them into these 3 categories. Right? Very important. Very important. So all these things should be there. And then course and the feedback is there from the students. Maybe you are teaching in a semester, you take twice before the semester is going to wind up. You have taken the feedback from the students, right? Not oral feedback. It is a feedback through a form, maybe online feedback form or whatever it is, right? Regarding the course that you are teaching, and then how you have done the corrective actions based on all those things. So you need to maintain this complete course file with the samples which can be demonstrated to the experts when they visit your campus. Then it talks about
another one question.
Yeah.
Can we use industrial expert in framing syllabus under autonomous stream?
Yeah, industry experts involvement in autonomous colleges. Yes, definitely. You have your board of studies, right? Autonomous college means you have a board of studies. So you can definitely involve industry experts, right? Not only framing the curriculum, even you can invite them to deliver the course partially or fully also. I have seen some institutions where industry experts have defined the syllabus, they are delivering to the students also. Some places I have seen that industry has defined a particular subject, and then they have trained a particular faculty in the department, and the department faculty is teaching for this to the students. That model also I have seen, right? You can involve the industry experts. There is no problem at all. The more you involve industry experts, the better will be the course, right? But it is very difficult, right? No industry experts will come forward. They are all doing their job also, right? They are not for you actually, right? So when the industry is sending some of the experts to you, means they have kept in mind that your students are good. So they're aiming that maybe in the final year, they can come to your placements, and then they can pick up the students from your campus. They can pick up the student from the campus. That's the whole purpose of it. That's the reason that industry people will come, right? Okay, so you can definitely have. So I hope I have answered your question. Yeah, any other questions, Dr. Gladys?
No, sir.
Yeah, right, good. Thank you. Yeah, attainment of course outcome that I already told you, right? Very important, right? You need to, I have seen many a times course outcomes, the way you have evaluated, and I know that Gladius has invited very good experts for this writing course outcomes, mapping, and then attainment and all those things, right? You understand the process correctly, and then try to impress upon the evaluators how you are doing it. And again, I emphasize here as evaluator that even the latest recent assistant professor joined in your department also should know about this, right? Because the experts are also teachers, senior teachers, experienced teachers. So they will not ask a professor, they will not ask the head of the department, but they will catch hold of this assistant professor who have joined recently. Because that's where is the weak link, right? Because they will not be trained, right? They do not know what is this outcome-based education. They do not know what is this CO. They do not know what is this mapping. So it is the responsibility of the department to hold a workshop, awareness program to the faculty who have joined recently. And then this should be an intermittent exercise, right? It's not that only one-time exercise, because if I take class today and evaluation today only, I don't think that you all will become experts, right? So it is, I have also gained some knowledge by around 8 to 10 years of experience of going to various institutions and various evaluation committees, right? Some knowledge I have gained so that I am able to share it. So it is only that intermittently you should have these awareness programs among the faculty, among the students, right? So that the whole purpose is of this outcome-based education and accreditation process is served, so that you are improving semester after semester, you are improving year after year, and then that should be visible in terms of placements, in terms of higher studies, in terms of students going for research, students going for startups and entrepreneurial activity. If that is visible, then definitely all your processes are well defined, and you are really working hard, and your institute, your department is flourishing, right? There is no dearth of students whenever admissions are happening. Students are rather competing to take admission in your particular program. Okay, and then you need to maintain the record of all these attainments that you are doing, that is CO attainment, pre-CO attainment, program specific outcomes, all these things you need to maintain it. And at the same time, you need to even analyze these attainments, various attainments, Like you have kept a targets for CO attainment, you have kept a target for PO attainment, PSO attainment. If it is not attained, why it is not attained? Because there is a criteria number 7. It talks about continuous improvements, right? Continuous improvements with respect to your PO attainment, PSO attainment, continuous improvement with respect to placements, higher studies, entrepreneurship, continuous improvement with respect to the admissions, right? Admissions to your particular program, like ranks or percentage of student, percentage in the +2 and all those things, right? There should be a continuous trend in improvement. Then only you will be able to justify criteria number 7. And then if you are not able to justify, then what are the gaps, right? Which subject has to be modified? Which curriculum has to be modified? Which practical setup has to be modified, right? Which equipment you need to procure in the lab, right? Which topics students are feeling difficulty? How you are going to make it more easy or more interactive with the students so that they are able to do it? All those things you need to do. So this criteria number 3 and criteria number 7, they're linked to each other, right? They're linked to each other. Okay, so you need to focus on this criteria number 3, and this is very important criteria. And many programs I have seen that they lose a lot of marks, right? Out of 175, even I have seen institutions getting only 30%, 40% marks of this 175. Very, right? Lot of marks. That is the reason I told you that out of 1,000, they have made a calculation of 950 plus, right? So 175 is only 30% or 40% you are getting. So straight away you have lost more than 100 marks here itself, right? So 950 minus 100, so 850 you came down, right? In the criteria number 2 also you lose some marks. So like that, your 950 will come to 600, 650, 600, less than 600 also sometimes, right? You are not able to justify before the experts. Very important. Then criteria number 4, criteria number 5, it is more of a data driven, right? Data driven means you need to have numbers. You need to have numbers, correct documents for it, and then you will be able to get. So student performance is of 100 marks in tier 1. If you go to tier 2 SAR, this number will be a little higher, right? Maybe I think 125 or something like that. But you need not have to worry. But the criteria is same. So enrollment ratio, right? Enrollment ratio greater than or equal to 90%, you will get full marks. Enrollment ratio means admission of the students. So you have 120 seats in mechanical engineering, or maybe civil engineering, or maybe computer science engineering. All 120 seats are filled. That means you will get full marks. So your program is really good, right? It is in demand. It is in demand from the student community, from the parents. So everybody is seeking your program. So therefore, your enrollment ratio is 100%. Right? That means 20 out of 20 marks. So students have come to you now. Now, what will we do with those students? Right? Your COs, your POs, PSOs, you should keep in mind how you are going to evaluate, how you are going to attain it properly. So then automatically the enrollment ratio will be having more demand, and the quality students will come. Right? One is having 100% enrollment ratio. Other one is many students are competing. To take admission in your particular program. So therefore, you will get better and better students, right? Better and better students, and better your teaching learning processes, and better placements. Better and better students are going for higher studies into more reputed institutions in India and abroad. And some students are also coming forward to take up entrepreneurial activities also. So that defines the quality of your program that is being offered, right? Okay. Then 4.2 is success rate in the stipulated period of the program, right? So in that, there are 2 criteria. One is success rate without backlogs. Another one is success rate in the 4 years period, because it is a BTech program. So it's a 4 years program, right? Stipulated period is 4 years. And then other one is number of students passing out in 4 years without any backlog. That means how many students out of this 120 have passed every exam, every semester, every year without any repetition, without failing in any subject. That is called success rate without backlogs in any semester or year of study, right? And the data you will get it right here, right? How many students have graduated from the program without any this thing, and how many students who are admitted, right, in that particular year. Then you get this SI, this is success index, and success index, right, you will calculate the average for the 3 batches that has been passed out, and then multiply that with the 15, then you will get the number, right? How many marks you have scored. That means more number of students are passing out without any backlogs, then more is the score you will get out of 15. More is that. Like suppose all 120 students have passed out without any backlogs. I have not seen so far any institute out of 50. I have not seen a single institute, even including NITs also I have gone. I have not seen any NIT also. All students have passed out in single go. So therefore, getting 15 out of 15 is ruled out, right? If it is done, then you need to really justify. You need to really justify that, right? Then they will see your question paper. Then they will see that how you are giving the marks, what is the pattern, all those things, right? But I have not seen out of 50 any institute which has scored 15 out of 15 in this 4.2.1, right? I have seen institutions scoring up to 90% of this, right? 90% of these 15 marks. I have seen above 60%, I have seen above 50%, I have seen 40%, I have seen, right? 30% also I have seen, right? That means many students are failing. Many students are failing in the first year itself, right? Many students are failing in the first. That is the reason that in the 2000, before 2016 SAR, right? There was no first year academics criteria. That is criteria number 8. So after this, a lot of observations, lot of analysis, fortunately, I was also part of this SAR. Then we introduced this first year academics separately because many students failure rate is in the first year. So the NBA has taken a serious issue out of this, and then they created a first year academics separately so that first year academics are focused, right? So that students are ensured that they will pass the first year successfully, so that their confidence level is maintained, right? That their confidence level is better and better. If they fail in the first year itself, they are losing the confidence level, and then second and third year and fourth year also their performance is impacted. That is the reason criteria number 8 is exclusively introduced for the first year. That also we will have a look at it, right? Okay. Then next one is success rate in the stipulated way. That means out of 120 students, how many students have passed out in 4 years time, with backlogs or without backlogs, right? Whatever is the mode. But in 4 years time, out of 120, how many have passed out? So I have seen 80%, 90%, sometimes even 99, 98% also I have seen that some institutions, students are passing out in 4 years. And that is a good thing, very good thing, right? 98% of the 120 students whom you have taken, they have passed out. So very good. Then the experts will be asking, what about the 2%? What are you doing with that 2%, right? Who will take care of them? What are you doing for them? So you should have a strategy for those 2% also, right? That means how do you motivate them? How do they come to the college? How do they clear their exams and then see that they pass out somehow from the institution, right? So you need to have some idea, some strategy, and then that you have implemented, so that left out 2% who could not clear in 4 years time, that you have a strategy in place for them also, and you are striving that those students are also will pass out, and then they're encouraged to take up some employment. Very, very important. Then academic performance in second year is also measured, right? And this is very straightforward formula only. You take the grade point average of semester, right, or maybe per year, and then you apply this formula over here, put the data over here, and then you will get out of 10 marks, how many you are going to score. How many you are going to score will be calculated. Very, very important is many institutions I have seen is 4.4, right? Placements data, right? Out of 120 students who have appeared in the final year examinations, they claim sometimes 100% placement. They claim sometimes 90% plus placements, 80% plus placements. But when you come to the documentary evidence, right, what the experts will see is every student who is placed, you should have an offer letter in your file, right? The problem is 100% they have claimed, but when we look at the 100 offer letter, 120 offer letters, they don't have 120 offer letters in the file. So then how did you write? Sir, we telephoned them, the student is working. So your telephoning is not going to help for the expert, right? Expert is there only 2 days or 3 days with you. So he is looking for an offer letter. Where is the offer letter, right? Sometimes I have seen that one employer, right, he has written an email that these are the students, right, 25 students who have been shortlisted for placement. That is not an offer letter, right? That is not an offer letter. 25 students in one mail, only names are written, right? And then that letter, email says that these are the shortlisted students for placement. But where is the offer letter, right? So you ensure that you get the offer letter. Many a times the reason is the department says that, sir, the offer letters are directly given to the students by the company, right? And at the same time, in your departmental presentation, your principal or directors or vice chancellor presentation, you showed that you have very strong alumni connect, very strong alumni connect. If your alumni connect is so strong, why your students are not giving offer letter to you, copy of the offer letter to your training and placement cell or to your department? So what you said, that strong alumni connect, and you are not able to get the data from the students, that shows that how strong is your alumni connect, right? That speaks volumes, right? Volumes about it. So it is the responsibility of the department and the training and placement cell to collect offer letters if the offer letters are sent directly by the company to the students. That shows very clearly that you have a very strong alumni connect. You are a strong connect with your students, even if they are passing out, right? Very important. Now in these placements also, now they have included off-campus placements and on-campus placements, right? On campus, you should have offer letter directly. Off campus, that means student has passed out, student has found a job, and then those students are also have shared the document with you, right? They have an identity card which is valid, which is showing that the student is clearly working over there, right? So you should have an identity card, you should have an offer letter, right? Offer letter, if it is there, it is very good. If it is offer letter is not there, maybe at least student has given the identity card, which is showing the validity and the signature, and it's a proper identity card. That also some extent will help, right? Will help. So very important, whatever number you are claiming in the placements and higher studies and entrepreneurship, you should have a documentary evidence. Without documentary evidence, experts will not count them. They will remove it, right? Even you have shown 100% placement. If 100 offer letters are not there, 120 offer letters are not there, then those many numbers will be removed. For higher studies, you should have a GATE score, you should have a CAT score, you should have a I-20 if they're going for the foreign studies, right? So maybe at least you should have an identity card where the student is studying, which is valid. Like suppose a student has taken an MTech admission in IIT, a student has taken a MBA admission in IIMs or maybe any other institution. So you should have an identity card which is valid. The student is studying, and that should be mapped with your data, right? So see, you need to say that suppose Ramakrishna is one of the students who has passed out. So you need to show that which year that student was, right? Out of the 3 assessment years, what was his roll number, right? So that you are having a connectivity that this is our student only, right? This is your student only, so-and-so semester, so-and-so year. So that type of relationship you should have. And entrepreneurship also, right? If you say that you are producing entrepreneurs every assessment year, that there should be a proof that if they're running a small company, whether it is a registered startup company, if it is registered, the registration document should be there. If there is any website is available, that website also you should be able to show. And then when there is an interaction with the alumni, right, then you should invite them so that they will be able to interact with the NBA team, right? So very, very important, very, very important. And this placement, higher studies and entrepreneurship data speaks volumes about your program, volumes, right? Right, if the placement is 100% or more than 100%, and good number of students are clearing the GATE exam or CAT exam or any national level exams or maybe foreign exams like GRE, GMAT, and then going for higher studies, they speak volumes about your programs, volumes, right? About your program. Very, very important criteria, right? Then professional activities in criteria number 4. Like I have seen that you have many societies and chapters. Some are local societies and local chapters, some are international or national also. Like you have a IST student chapter, you have a IET student chapter, you have a CSI student chapter, you have a ASME student chapter, you have a IEEE student chapter, right? Chapters are available, right? Chapters are available, but the number of quality events at the institute level, state level, national level, international level is very, very less. Even if the institute organize some activities, the number of students participating in these activities is very, very less. So that means you need to have a document, you need to have some attendance, you need to have some brief write-up of this activity, which is written by the students only. Like that means you have taken a feedback from the students, a well-structured feedback, and that is analyzed and that is summarized and put it in a file, and which the students are also should speak when the experts interact in the classroom, that how they are being benefited through these societies and chapters with respect to their skills, with respect to their knowledge, with respect to their talents, right? So that they are better ready for the placements, better ready for the higher studies and all those things. Very, very important. Then publication of technical magazines and newsletters. Yes, usually I've seen that newsletter or technical magazine or both of them are available, but the question is their quality. Quality is very important. And then that newsletter and magazine should exclusively indicate who are the students who have contributed, right? That means there is an editorial team. Then you should be able to write the name of the student and the roll number of the student also. right? So that your program students are actually involved, right? Suppose a magazine is coming at the institute level, right? And we are seeing the BTech Computer Science Engineering program for accreditation, and no BTech CSE program student is involved in that magazine, which is released at an institute level, then there will be no marks will be given because your students are not involved in that magazine, right? But some other maybe mechanical engineering or some other students are involved. But the accreditation is going on for CSE BTech program. So it is your responsibility. If it is a departmental magazine, department newsletter, then you should also indicate who are the students who are involved, right, along with the faculty. If it is the institute level magazine and newsletter, the program which is going for accreditation, which are the students which are involved in this particular this thing, very, very important. Documentary evidence is very, very important. Then you should encourage your students in the inter-institute activity. That means your student should be participating in the events within the state, right, outside the state, right? Outside the state means at the national level, anywhere in India, right? And then what are the prizes and awards that they have received? First prize, second prize, third prize, consolation prize, or participation in the participant certificate, right? All those records also you need to maintain, which shows that your students are not only performing very well within the institute, they are performing outside the institute also, right? Outside, within the state, outside the state, at the national level, right? Your students are participating in various activities of co-curricular, extracurricular activities, and that is a good sign. Good sign. And you have a documentary, like certificate. Suppose they have won a prize, there should be a certificate should be available. They have published a very good paper, right? They have presented a paper. That paper presentation certificate should be available, right? All those documentary evidences you need to maintain. So this talks about criteria number 5. Any question on criteria number 4? Then we'll move on to criteria number 5. So I am left with only 30 minutes. 35 minutes. So I need to cover 6 more. So we should be able to do it because major criteria have gone. So 5 is one of the major criteria and 6 onwards is very fast, right? Because there's not much to cover over there. We can do it, right? Criteria number 4, any questions? Dr. Gladius, any questions are there in chat window?
No questions, sir.
No questions. Very good, right? So that means they're all understanding very well, right? I assume that binary logic, right? 1 or 0. So I assume 1. That means all are understanding very well, right? Let us go to criteria number 5, which is very, very important criteria. And this criteria is directly for you only. Faculty information and contributions. Except student faculty ratio, right? That is number of faculty should be available in a particular program. Rest all is related to you because appointing faculty is the role of the management, right? Role of the institutional head, and getting the students is the responsibility of the faculty. That means your program quality is very good. Quality is measured in terms of 3 things only I told you: placements, higher studies, and entrepreneurship. The placements are above 100% or 100%, above 90%. Good number of students are clearing the GATE exam, CAT exam, and going for foreign studies. And very few students are taking up entrepreneurial activities also. That means your program is really good, really sought after in the market. So students are there, then automatically management has to recruit the faculty, right, to maintain this student faculty ratio so that you have a good interaction with the students and your faculty is not overloaded, right? The faculty is not overloaded and they are doing really well, right? So student faculty ratio is very important parameter to have effective teaching learning processes happening in a classroom or in a lab, right? And then you have a faculty which is satisfying the faculty cadre ratio also. That means you have a good number of senior faculty with experience at the level of professors. You have a reasonably good number at the associate professor level, and you have good number of assistant professors. But my experience is in many of the private institutions, even in the government institutions also, right? We don't find in the private institutions many satisfying professors and associate professors. They have good number of assistant professors, maybe more than what is required, right? Suppose they require 20 assistant professors. I've seen institutions having 25, 30 assistant professors also, but they don't have the required number at the associate professor level and professor level. So how to calculate the cadre ratio? 1:2:6. 1 professor, 2 associate professors, and 6 assistant professors based on the total required number of faculty you need to calculate. Very important, very important. So other thing you should remember is this faculty information and contribution is having 200 score, 200 marks. Whether it is tier 1, whether it is tier 2, this number is same, 200, right? Means it is the only criteria which is having the highest weightage out of 1000 marks. 20% weightage only for you, right? Faculty information and contributions. So and there is another condition also. If it is a tier 2 institution, right, you may be scoring more than 600 marks out of 1000, right? You will be eligible to be accredited for 3 years at least after scoring 600. If you score at least 40% in this criteria, that is a compulsory, right? 600 plus score, right? And 40% in criteria number 5. Along with, there are some other conditions also. So that speaks volumes, that importance of this criteria number 5. So 40%, that means 80 marks and above you have to score in this criteria if you are a tier 2 institution, right? And if you are a tier 1 institution, you should not score in this criteria W or D. That means weakness and deficiency should not be there, right? It has to be above that. That means Y is okay. That means you are fully complying, right? C is also permitted, but you should not have a W or D in this criteria. Weakness and deficiency you should not get, right? That means your score is less than 50%, then only you'll get W. Your score is less than 40%, then only you'll get D, right? So that is very, very important. Faculty cadre proportion, I told you that as per AICTE norms, you should have 1:2:6 with a SFR of 20:1, right? That means you need to calculate the required number of faculty as per the your sanctioned intake, keeping in mind a SFR of 1:20, and you calculate the required number of faculty as per 1:20, keeping in mind the sanctioned intake of the program for the 3 years, that is second year, third year, and final year. And then you calculate this 1:2:6. That means how many professors are required, how many associate professors are required, and how many assistant professors are required, right? Then faculty qualification, again, weightage is more number of faculty is available with PhD, right? And then you will get a better score. And no faculty in an engineering college for UG program cannot have a BTech degree. All faculty, as per AICTE norms now, every faculty should have MTech degree, right, at least, and they should not be given a designation of lecturer, right? So they have an MTech degree, right? They have a BTech degree, and they should be given a designation of assistant professors. Why I am stressing this is there are few government universities, state universities, right? They might have taken this faculty 10 years before. They are MTech, but they are given the designation of lecturer. I have seen 1 or 2 technical universities in Andhra Pradesh, right? They could not get through the accreditation process because their contractual faculty, especially the contractual faculty, MTech is there, but they are given a designation of lecturer. And NBA is very clear, no faculty with the lecturer designation will be considered, even though they are MTech. They will not be considered for SFR calculation. So please ensure, especially the government participant, if anybody is there, contractual faculty, if they have MTech degree, see that they are given assistant professor designation, not a lecturer designation. That should be taken care. So this is a practical experience. I am telling that 1 or 2 technical universities, they could not get extension of accreditation only because of this reason. Then faculty retention. Faculty retention is also very, very important, right? That means if the faculty is satisfied with the work environment in the department, in the institute, faculty are paid as per the pay scales like 6th pay commission or 7th pay commission, right? Maybe with little compromises, right, in a private institution. But overall, the faculty is satisfied. Like I saw in some institutions in Tamil Nadu only, right? They are giving breakfast is free, lunch is free, right? For all faculty and staff. Amazing, right? Amazing, right? I saw 1 or 2 institutions in Tamil Nadu. I was fortunate to visit them. Breakfast is free, lunch is free for all faculty and staff. Very amazing, very amazing. Only dinner also could have been free, but only thing is the institute is closed in the evening, right? So, but then how to make the institute functioning even the night also? That is your job, because management is doing their best, right, by providing the best facilities, right? So if the breakfast is free, lunch is free, pay commission guidelines are followed, right, with respect to 6th or 7th pay commission. So why the faculty will leave? Right? Your results are good, your placements are good, your higher studies are good, right? The management is very happy, you are also very happy. Then faculty retention will be very, very good, very good, right? Faculty retention. If more than 90% faculty is retained in the last 3 years, like COI M2 as a base year, that is current academic year -2. For example, current academic year now is 2021. So -1 is 1920, -2 is 1819. That means in the year 1819, how many faculty were required as per the AICTE guidelines? Let us say 20 faculty were required, right? Out of the 20 faculty, how many people are retained today, right? In 2021, right? So out of 20, suppose 10 people have left, right? All right, 10 people have left, only 10 are retained, means 50% is your retention. 50% retention means you will not get any marks, right? Greater than 50% or equal to, right? Suppose 49% is retained, so you will get 0 marks. You will get 0. That means your retention is very poor. The faculty is not satisfied with the work environment. Faculty is not satisfied with the incentives and salary. So there's that many people are moving out in less than 3 years time, right? So very, very important. That speaks volumes about your program, about your institution. That means people are not happy. That's the reason that they are moving out. So this you will not find in the government institutions, but in the many private institutions, I have seen that retention ratio is even 30% also I have seen, 40% also I have seen, 10% also I have seen, right? So it is the management hands, right, how they're going to retain their faculty by giving all the benefits which is due for them. Then faculty competition in relation to program specific. That means your specialization. That means you have a cloud computing subject, you have a 3D printing subject, you have a robotics subject, which are really specialized subjects. Do you have faculty to every specialization that is addressed in the curriculum, program curriculum? That means you have various basic subjects. You have program codes, you have program electives, you have some latest subject that you have introduced, emerging subjects. So do you have the faculty to teach all those subjects? That mapping, you need to do it with respect to the specialization. Then the research publications accordingly, right? In the area wise, the faculty is publishing in quality research publication in terms of journal papers and the conference papers, even books publishing, book chapter publishing, patent publishing, copyright publishing, all those things, right? Any course material development and any other thing that you have done good, that can be highlighted here. You will get 10 marks. Innovations by faculty in teaching learning, right? This is entirely done by you only, right? Whatever good work that you are doing, that should be made available on your website for your students, for your faculty, even if it is available to the outside your institute. Like that means anybody in the world can access this, what you have done, good work that you have. Suppose say you have developed a MOOCs course, right? MOOCs course on, let us say, cloud computing, right? Cloud computing, it's well done, right? And you are confidently put it on the website. It is for your students, for your faculty, right? Anybody in the world, anybody in India or abroad can access this material for educational purpose, and they can modify it also as per the requirement, right? You created a wonderful lab manual, right? Lab manual which is not available, and you've done it. Or even if it is available, but you have made it in such a way that which is more user friendly, more clear, right? More an outcome-based education model, which nobody has done it, and you have displayed it on the website, and it is available for peer review and critique and further reproducibility and reusability. That is going to be excellent, right? That is all in your hands. Then you will get good marks for this out of this 10. Then one important thing is 5.7. Faculty as participant in faculty development programs and training program has to be. So only one point I wanted to emphasize here is you please ensure that your faculty, each faculty in your department will attend at least one program, faculty development program like this you are attending now, outside your institute, right? Outside your institute. I have seen a few institutions, they have conducted maybe in 3 years time 20 programs, but all 20 programs are within the department or within the institute. So my encouragement is you please see that one faculty, each faculty in your department will attend at least one program outside your institute, outside your state, in reputed institutions like IITs or NITs or IIITs or any other better institute, right? Even it can be private also, no harm, but it should be above you, right? That means with respect to NIRF ranking, maybe they are above you. With respect to number of programs that that institute has got accreditation, that should be above you, right? And maybe with respect to placements and higher studies going, and they are better than you. Maybe in the state ranking, right, they are above you. So that type of institutions, you should sponsor your faculty, right? So by sending your faculty to the outside is they learn many new things, right? Many new things. Maybe when they visit an IIT, right? Maybe let us say you are in Tamil Nadu, IIT Chennai, you have, or maybe IIIT Kanchipuram, you have sent to your faculty. So they will see the work culture over there. They will see the labs over there. They will see their curriculum over there. They will build a rapport with some of the faculty so that you can go for joint publications, joint research, right? Joint book chapter publication. Many things you can do it, right? That you are encouraging your faculty to have an interaction with faculty which is from reputed institutions, so that indirectly again helps your department and your institution further for better delivery, better labs, better facilities for the students, for the faculty, and so on and so forth. So please don't encourage your faculty to attend all the training programs within the institution, within the department. Encourage them to attend at least one program in a year outside your department, outside your institute. Very important. Academic research, very, very important, right? Very, very important.
Sir, one more question, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Please read out.
Actually, the faculty roles plays a major role in NBA, sir. Actually, 200 marks, right? So many institutions fail to care about the workload of faculty, right? Those who are doing PhD, assistant professor, associate professor, all personals have same workload. So how do you feel for this situation, sir? What are the remedies we should take?
Remedies is this only, madam. If many of your assistant professors are pursuing PhD and their workload is not reduced, when this is possible, when your admission enrollment ratio is 100% and more than 100%, right? The students are getting good placements, right? That means management is earning good amount of money, right? Okay. If management is proactive, right? They are highly satisfied with the students' enrollment and then placements. That means department faculty is doing very well. All department faculty is doing very well. So naturally, they are giving better and better salaries, and they are in a position to recruit more than the required faculty, right? At least at the assistant professor level, because they need to pay salaries also for these people and various other things they need to take care. So if the health of the department, health of the institute is very good, that is possible only when your students are passing out, placed, higher studies, and there is a lot of demand for your program. So then management can recruit over and above this required criteria of 1:20 or 1:25 SFR. So that they require 15 assistant professors, maybe they have 20 assistant professors. Then load sharing can be done, right? Suppose if the program is not doing well, so they may not be having this 1:20 or 1:25 also. Sometimes this SFR I have seen going to 1:30, 1:35, right? That means the assistant professors, not only assistant professor, even a higher associate and the professor also, they are all overloaded. Then where is the question of doing PhD by these assistant professors or maybe even associate professors also without PhD, right? So indirectly, right, if the program is doing very well, right, in terms of this thing, enrollment ratio will be good, then more number of assistant professors rather than required is recruited. So then the load sharing will be done. Load sharing. Otherwise, there is no way to do load sharing. There is no way. There is no way, right? Management cannot afford to have a load sharing when their revenues are not increasing, right? And then they are also not proactive. Sometimes I have seen that revenues are coming, but the management is not proactive. That scenario also I have seen 1 or 2 places, right? They are not giving. See, that I told you in Tamil Nadu, there are 2 institutions or 3 institutions. I have seen that they are giving free lunch, free breakfast, right? And along with the salaries also, they are paying very well. So then it's good scenario, right? That means the management is proactive. They are earning money. They are spending money also. They are spending money also. They are spending money also. That is the only way. Otherwise, there is no way that management will be able to reduce the load of the faculty who are pursuing PhD, right? Because all subjects have to be taught, right? And you have less than the required number of faculty. Required number of faculty as per 1:20 also you don't have. As per 1:25 also you don't have. Then the load reduction cannot be done because all subjects have to be taught. Hope this will this thing, right, answers your question. Okay. Then this quality publication, that's what I was telling you, right? Quality publications. You can see here for the experts, the indication is given to us refereed journals and SCI journals, right? We are not going to consider other publications at all, right? Even UGC CARE, maybe you may be having it, but that we can call it a referred journals. Scopus also referred journals, and SCI journals exclusively mentioned here, transactions like IEEE and all. And then every faculty, whichever paper they're publishing, there should be a Google Scholar citations or maybe ResearchGate score or maybe something else, right? Which speaks that your publications are being utilized by other researchers. That's what is citations, right? Citations. And then books and books chapters you have published. If you have published the books, who is the publisher? Whether it is a national level publisher, whether it is a local publisher, whether it is international publisher, right? And that speaks volumes about all those things. So you need to do all these quality publications. You can see here, right? Number of quality publications in terms of papers, in terms of citations, in terms of books, in terms of book chapters. So focus on that, right? Maybe in 3 years time, 3 years assessment time, right? Suppose let us say you have 15 faculty in the entire department. Let us say you have 5 quality publications, SCA publications, 5 SCA publications put together for the 3 assessment years. And maybe let us say you have around 10 Scopus publications, right? Maybe 5 UGC care list. Good number, right? Right? 5 SCI, right? 10 Scopus, 15, another 5. So 25 publications in 3 years for 15 faculty. Very good number. I have seen an institution, they have 100 publications, but out of the 100 publications, right, only hardly there are 5 publications which are quality. So that speaks that you do not have quality publications. You are not promoting the quality publications. So what is this outcome-based education? It talks about quality. It talks about continuous improvement in quality. So which you are not able to demonstrate, which you are not able. So you lose a lot of marks here, right? Though you have 100 publications, but only quality is only very 5. And then experts will write that very few quality publication under weakness, because at the end of the visit, experts will speak out what are the strengths of your program, what are the concerns, that means where you can easily take care, what are the weaknesses, that means you need to really work hard, what are the deficiencies, right? So deficiencies and weaknesses have to be brought into at least concerns. The concerns should be turning into strength. So that is the whole purpose of this continuous quality improvement in outcome-based education model. And where I have seen a lot of problem in many institutions programs is 5.8.2 sponsored research, right? Here I have underlined the word cumulative also, right? Sponsored research is not with respect to individual faculty. It is the total sponsored research across the faculty across these 3 years, cumulative, right? Cumulative of all the faculty getting the sponsored research over a period of 3 years, right? So if you say that if you get any amount between 15 to 30 lakhs, you will get 5 marks. If any amount, cumulative amount less than 15 lakhs, you will get 0 marks. So instead of targeting for large projects like 1 crore, 10 crore, 50 lakhs sponsored research, target for small projects, right? Maybe a project, research project of 25,000 rupees or 50,000 rupees or 1 lakh, this thing, but encourage all of your faculty, starting from assistant professor to professor, encourage each of them to write small research projects, right? Small this thing which is local to your needs also. Some industries are there, maybe you can get a research project and then help them. Because it is going to be a cumulative amount of all the faculty put together over a period of 3 years, right? So if you can get between 15 to 30 lakhs, at least you have started the work. Otherwise, they will write that there is no sponsored R&D project, sponsored research, 0. That means it's a deficiency, right? Many institutions out of 50 plus I have seen, right? At least I should say that 40 institutions, right? 0 marks out of 20, 0 marks, no sponsored research. The usual answer is, so it is very difficult to get sponsored research from this thing. Right? It's very difficult to get it, very difficult.
Third year.
Yeah. So I encourage that you focus on every faculty taking up small research projects, right? So that it will add up to at least more than 50 lakhs and above, right? So that you will get at least 5 marks, and then experts will say weakness point, not a deficiency, right? That means you have started that every faculty is involved in this sponsored research in a smaller way, small projects. So it's a good step. It's a good step, right? So once you demonstrate this ability before the industry or maybe agency who is sponsoring these projects, and slowly you will get bigger projects, right? It's very difficult. I know that in a private industry, if you apply to a government agency like AICT, UGC or DST, right? Or maybe CSIR, right? It is very difficult for you to get funding, right? Very difficult to get funding. But when you start doing this at a lower level, right? Small project, a local level, and then gain expertise and demonstrate this when you apply for bigger agencies like AICT, UGC and DST and all those things, then it will be more easy for you over a period of 10 years or 15 years to get larger projects from these national level agencies. So you should start, because many institutions, my experience is 0 marks in this 5.8.2. Then developmental activities, right? Product development, that is the student projects becoming prototypes, and then you are able to technology transport to an industry which is ready to produce products, right? So how many of this? That means your focus should be any idea which student has implemented, which is novel, which is new, which is really helpful, right? So that should turn into a prototype, and then you should strive for technology transfer to somebody who can produce it at a larger scale and which is being used. And then they are earning money, and in turn you are getting your royalty for your technology transfer. Then research laboratories, though you are running only BTech program, at least you should have one research laboratory, right? At least one research laboratory should be there, so that some faculty, some students are involved in these research activities at the department level. So if that is not there, then your sponsored research automatically becomes zero, right? Because there is no research lab, there is no research hardware is available, software is available, right? Professional tools are not available, then there is no way to carry out this research, which is useful for the sponsoring agencies, right? Instructional materials, if you have developed like course materials, lab material, whatever you have developed, MOOCs material, that also you can demonstrate it, and you need to convince the experts that why you have developed this research material, who is being benefited, right? Your students, or maybe outside the institute also, if somebody is benefited, right? All those statistics and documentation, if you have, that is going to be excellent. Then there is another one which I have seen almost zero, is 5.8.4. So two things are very important. One is sponsored research, and other one is consultancy from industry. 40 marks are there. Out of 200 marks, 40 marks, 20 plus 20, right? 40 marks are reserved for this. And I have seen that in these 40 marks, many institutions out of 50 I have visited, 0 marks, 0 marks. Okay, so you should focus on this. So out of 200, minus 40 is 160 only you have. Out of this 160, right, I told you that out of 200 you should get 80 marks. That means only out of 160, 50% you have to get this 80 marks. Very tough, right? Don't take it very easy. I have seen many institutions, right, scoring 600 plus, but not able to get this 40% marks in this criteria number 5. So very important. So again, this consultancy from industry is also cumulative. So my suggestion is any amount less than 2 lakhs is 0. So 2 to 4 lakhs, you will get 2 marks. So target again small consultancy projects, small consultancy projects, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, right? So, but encourage the culture among all the faculty in the department, right? There are 20 faculty, right, doing a 50,000 rupees average project, right? Sponsored consultancy project. So 50,000 into 20, good amount, right? So almost you will reach here, nah? Up to 10 lakhs you will reach. That's good. So even if 25,000 rupees every faculty is getting, there are 20 faculty, 25 into 20, right? 25,000 into 20, good amount, right? You will get some marks. So instead of showing it as a deficiency, it can be a weakness, it can be a concern, right? If no activity is done, then definitely it is deficiency, and that will be pointed out by the experts. Then 5.9 is faculty performance appraisal and development system. Just 1 second, 1 second. Hello. जय किशन जी क्लास में है यार, अभी क्लास में अनदर 15-20 मिनट लगेगा.
Sir, please unmute yourself, sir.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Gladys. Right, you have done my job. Because director office is calling me again and again,
Yes,
right?
yes, sir.
Yeah. So I am in demand over there, right? It
I
seems.
muted.
Okay, thank you. You have done my job. Excellent job.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So take care of these, and then faculty performance appraisal and faculty development system. That means you have a appraisal system for every. Mostly, I have seen that many institutions have this well-defined performance appraisal. But the problem I have seen is it's in implementation and effectiveness. That is, there are some comments are written about faculty where they need to improve, where they are doing really very well, right? But that is not being conveyed properly to the faculty, and then they are not taken care. So you need to focus on this implementation effectiveness of this faculty performance appraisal, also very important. Then you have this visiting adjunct and emeritus faculty. Some institutions I have seen there is a provision is there, so you will get 1 mark, but they are not able to contribute minimum 50 hours per year, right? Per year per expert. So if that is not done, then you will not get any mark over here, right? Minimum of 50 hours of interaction if this visiting adjunct faculty in a year is required. If it is not done, then you will lose, you will not get any marks, but you will get only this 1 mark. They are available, right? Or maybe provision exists, then you will get it. So take this criteria very, very seriously, right? And it is required that you should score at least 40%. If it is a tier 2 institution, if it is a tier 1 institution, you should not get a W or D grade in this, right? Okay. Very important. So any questions are there in criteria number 5? Otherwise, then I'll rush.
Participants, any questions?
And
Can ask now.
Dr. Gladdy, any question? Yeah, if no questions are there, we'll go ahead, right? Then facilities and technical support is self-explanatory. I'm not going to cover much on this. Only one point I'll tell you: whatever technical manpower that you have in the labs, your lab attendants, your technicians, right? Your technical staff, like maybe senior technical staff or junior technical staff, they should have proper qualification. They should be adequate in number to support all your labs, right? And then you are also concerned about their upgradation with respect to knowledge and skills. That means they have been sponsored to attend some programs, right, to improve their knowledge and skills, so that in turn they'll come back and assist you in the laboratories. Other important thing is safety measures in the laboratories. Very, very important, right? So you should have the first aid kit. You should have this ABC kind of firefighting system, right? And then some safety measures, like suppose it's electrical engineering machines lab. So students should be not wearing loose clothes, right? Even especially the girl students, right? If they are there, then they should not leave their hair. They should tie it up properly, because this is machines lab. So there is a possibility of any accidents, right? And they should not wear chappal. They should wear shoes, right? They should wear shoes. Why I'm telling all these things is, when we went for our PG program, electrical engineering accreditation, one expert had come from IIT Kharagpur, and he pointed out that day students were there. One girl student, right? She was not wearing the shoes also. She was not wearing the, she was not tying the hair also, right? So hair was left loose, and then shoes was not this thing. That even minute thing also was pointed out by the expert in the exit meeting, that students are not adhering to the safety measures in the lab. It's a small thing, but it has been spelled out by the expert in the exit meeting. So that should be taken care. If you have any project laboratory specifically, if it is not there, it is better to categorize one laboratory into project laboratory, and it has got various hardware and software tools are available, which is really helpful for the students in the final year, or maybe major and minor projects, to utilize these tools and hardware, and they come up with their best projects and all. So facilities should be available, and utilization should be available. This is criteria number 6, and I have seen that many institutions will score at least 60 marks here, right? Out of 80, 60 marks they are scoring it, and where they lose the marks is with respect to this technical manpower, with respect to the safety aspects, with respect to this project. That's the reason I have highlighted. Rest of the things you have, and that is the reason you will score at least 60 marks.
Sir, one more question.
Yeah.
Research budget allocation details.
Yeah. What do you want?
They are asking about to discuss about the research budget allocation details. How we are going to allocate the research budget?
Yeah. See, I will come to that budget part in criteria number 10 quickly. Right, there is a R&D budget also, right? So that means you need to get it approved. I have seen that many institutions money is allocated. Let us say 10 lakh rupees in R&D every year is allocated. But when it comes to utilization part, no utilization is done. So now I don't know whose mistake is this. Whether it is just shown that there is a budget is allocated by the department, by the institution, no utilization. So when we talk to the faculty, they are silent. They don't speak. Right. So it appears that only allocation is done just to show to the experts. So no money is being sanctioned to the faculty who is interested in doing some research. That is one way of interpreting by the experts, because faculty is also not speaking, but money is allocated. Right. So that means it is only just for showing purpose you are shown. So it doesn't serve any purpose. Even you have allocated, it is giving a wrong picture, right? You have allocated the money, you are not given to the faculty for carrying out their research work. So don't do that. Right? Rather, you show a small amount, maybe let us say only 3 lakhs only, right, in every year. So start giving this money to faculty who is really excited to do some research kind of activities, and then do it. That is called internal this thing. But what we talked about in the faculty contribution is sponsored research, right? Not by your institution, right? Institute is having a policy of seed money. Seed money means to encourage faculty to pursue research. Institute has taken some activities that they give 50,000 rupees per faculty, and then they need to do some research activities.